Love it. Let's do it, Michaela.
All right, here we go. Thanks so much. Another story that we're keeping firm eyes on, Emory University Hospital, the site where Dr. Ken Brantly and Nancy Writebol have been staying and getting treatment. Well, we're expecting to hear any minute from Dr. Ken Brantly, any moment now. He is the first known Ebola patient in the United States at that hospital in Atlanta where he's been treated over the past few weeks. They are planning to release him any second now. They have done a series of tests, 2 blood tests in particular, and those 2 blood tests have come back negative for the deadly virus. What is surprising to us, though, is that the other U.S. missionary, you'll recall, we followed her voyage as well, Nancy Writebol, she was already released. Apparently, she was released on Tuesday. We want to show you some live pictures at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. A news conference is expected to start soon. Brantly and Writebol both contracted that Ebola virus while working for religious charities in Liberia. They were treating people that had been sickened. They both, as you'll recall, received that experimental drug ZMapp and recovered quite quickly. You'll remember that Brantly and Writebol were very, very ill. Who can forget this scene? After Ken Brantly was flown to the United States on a specially equipped plane that kept them in isolation, he walked under his own power into the hospital there. These images, I think very few of us will forget. Now, here is the question. The World Health Organization says there is a slight possibility that that virus could linger potentially up to 3 months in his blood system, even though blood tests show they have been cured. So we certainly have a lot of questions for our Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He is on staff at Emory University Hospital. We're going to talk to him after that news conference. We're expecting to hear from some of the police officers, or not the police officers, I got my stories mixed up. We have some of the doctors that have been treating Dr. Ken Brantly, who's there in the blue shirt. Why don't we listen in and hear what they have to say?
Good morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Vince Dollard with Emory University's Health Sciences Communications. I am pleased to introduce this morning Dr. Bruce Ribner, Medical Director of Emory's Infectious Disease Unit at the Emory University Hospital. Also pleased to introduce Dr. Kent Brantly, a medical doctor who was serving with Samaritan's Purse in Liberia. Our run of show is as follows. Dr. Ribner will make a brief statement. Then Dr. Brantly will make a brief statement, and we'll take no questions. After that, Dr. Ribner will take questions. We have a moderated call-in line as well. Dr. Ribner.
Good morning, and thank you for coming here today. I'm Bruce Ribner, the Medical Director of the Infectious Diseases Unit at Emory University Hospital. Sorry. I lead the team of doctors, nurses, laboratory technologists, chaplains, and many others who have cared for Dr. Brantly and Mrs. Writebol, 2 patients who were treated at Emory University Hospital for Ebola virus disease. Today, I'm pleased to announce that Dr. Brantly is being discharged from the hospital. After a rigorous course of treatment and thorough testing, we have determined, in conjunction with the Centers for Disease Control and state health departments, that Dr. Brantly has recovered from the Ebola virus infection and that he can return to his family, to his community, and to his life without public health concerns. The second patient, Mrs. Writebol, was discharged this past Tuesday, August 19th. The medical staff here at Emory is confident that the discharge from the hospital of both of these patients poses no public health threat. The hospital is respecting Mrs. Writebol's wishes for privacy at that time, so we will not be making any further comments about her clinical course. Speaking on behalf of everyone at Emory, we are tremendously pleased with Dr. Brantly and Mrs. Writebol's recovery, and we are profoundly grateful for the opportunity to have applied our training, our care, and our experience to meeting their needs. All of us who have worked with them have been impressed by their courage and determination. Their hope and faith have been an inspiration to all of us. In addition, both of the patients' families provided tremendous support throughout this treatment process. Their dedication and devotion have strengthened us as well as the patients. Limited knowledge of the Ebola virus, especially in our country, has created understandable anxiety and fear for some persons. We understand that there are a lot of questions and concerns regarding Ebola virus and the infection that it causes. However, we cannot let our fears dictate our actions. We must all care. As grateful as we are today, our work is far from over. We are very mindful of all of those in West Africa who are still fighting for their lives against this threat, and those who are caring for them, putting their own lives in danger. It was the right decision to bring these patients back to Emory for treatment. What we learned in caring for them will help advance the world's understanding of how to treat Ebola virus infections and help, hopefully, to improve survival in parts of the world where patients with this infection are treated. At Emory, our mission is to heal and to advance knowledge. The team of professionals with me here today has trained for years to treat and contain the most dangerous infectious diseases in the world. We are grateful for the successful outcome in this case, but we are never going to be taking success for granted. 3 other critically important partners who have helped us throughout this episode deserve recognition today. Our neighbors, the Centers for Disease Control, the Food and Drug Administration, and the state epidemiologists of Georgia and North Carolina. I will be taking your questions, as Mr. Dollard said, but before doing so, Dr. Brantley has requested to make a brief statement. And as Mr. Dollard said, Dr. Brantley will not be taking any questions following his statement, so I ask that you respect his wishes and save your questions for me and for the other members of our healthcare team. Thank you.
Dr. Brantley.
Today is a miraculous day. I'm thrilled to be alive, to be well, and to be reunited with my family. As a medical missionary, I never imagined myself in this position. When my family and I moved to Liberia last October to begin a 2-year term working with Samaritan's Purse, Ebola was not on the radar. We moved to Liberia because God called us to serve the people of Liberia. In March, when we got word that Ebola was in Guinea and had spread to Liberia, we began preparing for the worst. We did not receive our first Ebola patient until June, but when she arrived, we were ready. During the course of June and July, the number of Ebola patients increased steadily, and our amazing crew at Elwa Hospital took care of each patient with great care and compassion. We also took every precaution to protect ourselves from this dreaded disease by following MSF and WHO guidelines for safety. After taking Amber and our children to the airport to return to the States on Sunday morning, July 20th, I poured myself into my work even more than before, transferring patients to our new, bigger isolation unit, training and orienting new staff, and working with our human resources officer to fill our staffing needs. 3 days later, on Wednesday, July 23rd, I woke up feeling under the weather. And then my life took an unexpected turn as I was diagnosed with Ebola virus disease. As I lay in my bed in Liberia for the following 9 days, getting sicker and weaker each day. I prayed that God would help me be faithful, even in my illness. And I prayed that in my life or in my death, that he would be glorified. I did not know then, but have learned since, that there were thousands, maybe even millions of people around the world praying for me throughout that week, and even still today. And I've heard story after story of how this situation has impacted the lives of individuals around the globe, both among my friends and family, and also among complete strangers. I cannot thank you enough for your prayers and your support. But what I can tell you is that I serve a faithful God who answers prayers. Through the care of the Samaritan's Purse and SIM missionary team in Liberia, the use of an experimental drug, and the expertise and resources of the healthcare team at Emory University Hospital, God saved my life. A direct answer to thousands and thousands of prayers. I am incredibly thankful to all of those who were involved in my care from the first day of my illness all the way up to today, the day of my release from Emory. If I tried to thank everyone, I would undoubtedly forget many. But I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to a few. I want to thank Samaritan's Purse, who has taken care of me and my family as though we were their own family. Thank you to the Samaritan's Purse and SIM Liberia community. You cared for me and ministered to me during the most difficult experience of my life, and you did so with the love and mercy of Jesus Christ. Thank you to Emory University Hospital, and especially to the medical staff in the isolation unit. You treated me with expertise, yet with such tenderness and compassion. For the last 3 weeks, you have been my friends and my family, and so many of you have ministered to me not only physically, but also spiritually, which has been an important part of my recovery. I will not forget you and all that you have done for me. And thank you to my family, my friends, my church family, and all who lifted me up in prayer, asking for my healing and recovery. Please do not stop praying for the people of Liberia and West Africa and for a quick end to this Ebola epidemic. My dear friend Nancy Writebol, upon her release from the hospital, wanted me to share her gratitude for all of the prayers on her behalf. As she walked out of her isolation room, all she could say was, "To God be the glory." Nancy and David are now spending some much-needed time together. Thank you for your support throughout this whole ordeal. My family and I will now be going away for a period of time to reconnect, decompress, and to continue to recover physically and emotionally. After I've recovered a little more and regained some of my strength, we will look forward to sharing more of our story. But for now, we need some time together after more than a month apart. We appreciate having the opportunity to spend some time in private before talking to some of you who have expressed an interest in hearing more of our journey. Thank you for granting us that. Again, before we slip out, I want to express my deep and sincere gratitude to Samaritan's Purse, SIM, Emory, and all of the people involved in my treatment and care. Above all, I am forever thankful to God for sparing my life. And I'm glad for any attention my sickness has attracted to the plight of West Africa in the midst of this epidemic. Please continue to pray for Liberia and the people of West Africa, and encourage those in positions of leadership and influence to do everything possible to bring this Ebola outbreak to an end. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, I don't know about you at home, but I think a lot of us here in the studio have been so impressed by how healthy and vibrant Dr. Kent Brantley looks. He spent 3 weeks at Emory University Hospital. He walked in under his own power, but very, very sick. He recounted just moments ago the 9 days after feeling like he was coming down with something. He said July 23rd, woke up in his bed feeling under the weather, was bedridden for 9 days, and got sicker and sicker and sicker until he was given that ZMapp, that experimental serum. Apparently it was the first to go to Nancy Writebol, but he suddenly took a turn. They gave it to him. He was transferred to Emory University Hospital on a specially customized plane that would keep him in isolation. He spent 3 weeks under the care of the doctors in the infectious disease unit there at Emory University Hospital. The CDC also working in conjunction. And now look at him. It's really remarkable. He is the first patient to be treated for Ebola virus in the United States. And he is now going to go away and spend some time with his wife. You can see there's a whole lot of smiles and hugs in that room. A terrible amount of, a wonderful amount, I should say, not a terrible, a wonderful amount of gratitude and compassion he has shown, not just for the other patients that are suffering in West Africa, but a fair amount of gratitude, a great deal of gratitude to the hospital staff there. One of the people on the staff at Emory University Hospital is our very own Dr. Sanjay Gupta. I'm kind of marveling at this, Sanjay, as you join me here, as we watch the scene play out. It's really remarkable, his recovery.
It really is, and he gave some details as well about, you know, what happened to him. It was July 20th when, you know, he had been living in Liberia with his family. He had taken his wife, Amber. You see there what a relationship he's obviously developed with the healthcare team that took care of him. You know, and he just took such great time to thank everybody. He just, it was very moving.
It was very moving.
Now he's holding hands with his wife, Amber. I point that out only because we've talked so much about how infectious Ebola can be. You know, it can even be transmitted through sweat and through, you know, simple contact, and you just see him there holding hands, hugging all the doctors. The optics of that so remarkable. And what you're looking at has never happened before in this part of the world, Michaela. No. July 23rd is when he got sick. You heard the same thing. 9 days he was quite sick, and then got that medication.
Sanjay, they're going to ask some questions to people that are in the room there. Why don't we listen in, and then if you'll stick around with me, let's talk on the back end of this.
You
got it.
Excuse me, answer the call-in question. All right. Beth?
Hi, it's Beth Galvin from Fox 5. Can you talk about how you determined it is safe to release both Dr. Brantley and Ms. Writebol? What steps were involved? How do you know?
How did we determine it was safe to release both patients?
Okay, so the decision, without revealing privileged patient confidential information, the decision to discharge any patient with Ebola virus disease is basically done on a case-by-case basis. The CDC will actually be having a press release that they're going to be putting out, I understand, simultaneous with this. But the standard World Health Organization and CDC guidelines that have been used in the third world have been absence of virus in the blood and patient symptomatically improved for at least 2 to 3 days.
Yes, sir, in the back with the blue.
Yeah, Anderson, CBS 46 News. Can you explain what life is like after Ebola?
What is life after Ebola? Well, I won't get into the psychic aspects. In terms of the medical aspects, we do not anticipate, there may be some recovery time because this is a fairly devastating disease, but we would anticipate that in general, most patients, if they have not had any substantial organ damage, will make a complete recovery.
Jim Burrows.
Dr. Ribner, could you explain from your perspective what you felt when there was a turning point, when you realized that they were getting healthy and might be released?
What was the turning point?
No, how I felt. How I felt was his question. Okay, so that's not releasing patient information. As I think I told many in this audience 3 weeks ago now, we were very hopeful that with the level of support we can deliver at our facility, that we would have a substantially better outcome than our colleagues practicing with lesser developed healthcare systems. Having said that, however, once it became clear to us that both of our patients were going to recover and recover with very little residual, there was a pretty gratifying feeling amongst all of us.
In the there, please, can state your name and affiliation.
Rebecca Lindstrom, 11 Live. How would you explain the success of the treatment that was used here in its ability to help those now in West Africa?
Okay, so the question is, how will our success help our colleagues treating patients in the outbreak going on in West Africa now? I would say the major thing that we will help them with is they suffer a substantially lack of infrastructure. And we did learn a number of things in terms of caring for these patients, in terms of fluid and electrolyte replacement, in terms of clotting abnormalities and so on, which frankly our colleagues in Africa don't have the capability to detect. And so we are in the process of developing several guidelines which will be disseminated to the practitioners in Africa, saying, you know, even if you can't measure this, this is something we found, and there are things you can do, even if you can't measure it, to try and improve the outcomes in your patients.
State your affiliation, please.
Dr. Scott Gordon with NBC5 in Dallas, Fort Worth. Are you personally surprised how quickly you were able to release these two patients? And second quick question.
All right, that's Dr. Bruce Ribner, the head of infectious disease unit at Emory University Hospital, taking some questions. And you can imagine there are a lot of questions in the room there as Dr. Kent Brantley is being released from the hospital in Atlanta 3 weeks after entering there very, very sick. Walking under his own power. It does merit pointing that out. I want to bring back in our colleague, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who we should mention is on staff there at Emory. And I think it's so surprising that he is able to leave. I think the two questions are how do we know? How do we know